Hey y'all, if there's one thing we love to do here at Wired to Fish, it's see exactly what lures do underwater. That's why we're revisiting an old series that we did called What It Looks Like. And so if you remember, we did a video showcasing all the chatterbaits in the Z-Man lineup. So as this type of lure has grown in popularity over the years, a lot of manufacturers are trying to stand out amongst the crowd with their own unique designs. So another thing that we want to think about when we're talking about vibrating jigs, bladed jigs, is not only what they look like underwater, but what they sound like underwater. So we're going to go into detail with all these lures because there's different blade designs, there's different head designs, and they all have a unique sound. So when we play these clips underwater, you're looking at what they do, the erratic action, but also what do they sound like underwater. So we're going to start right now with the first bait. So the first bait we're going to look at today is Berkeley's Slobber Knocker. Cool thing about this bait, it has a unique blade to head design. So in my opinion, this is actually one of the loudest vibrating jigs in the lineup. Another cool thing about this, if you've ever experienced getting snagged or setting the hook or something like that, sometimes your blade can actually break off from the head. And with this design, with the blade connecting to the head, it prevents break-offs. Another really cool thing about this bait is that the skirt is actually power bait infused, so it actually has a flavor and a scent, which means fish are going to hold on to it that much longer. So another thing you'll notice about the Slobber Knocker is that its blade size is actually generally larger than most of your average blade sizes on a vibrating jig. So when it comes to having a bigger blade and having that hunting action, there's some places that you don't necessarily want a big wandering action. Really tight quarters under a dock, maybe some tight weeds around wood and stuff like that. But if you're really trying to cover water over big flat or something like that, you want a bait that's going to go in and out like that and really cover a lot of water. And that's what you're going to get with a bigger blade. So the next bait we're going to take a look at is the Booya Melee. And one thing, contrary to the Slobber Knocker, a little bit more of a narrow blade, and so that correlates to not as much of a wandering action. And there's a reason for that, because as you can see, it's got this kind of protruding head there. And the whole purpose of that is that the head hits before the blade does. Spinnerbaits, fairly weedless, pretty good in cover. Bladed jigs, sometimes not all that good through cover and stuff like that. So having this protruding head, that means that the head bumps into the wood, bumps into the weed first, and allows it to wander through cover quite a bit better. Another cool thing about this is most jig heads on vibrating jigs are lead of some kind. This is a polycarbonate head with a lead core. An interesting thing about that is it sounds uniquely different than any other lead-headed vibrating jig. So the next bait we're going to look at is the Picasso Shockblade Pro. And this one, right off the bat, you'll notice has a very unique head design. And that's kind of for a specific reason as well. This is a vibrating jig that I'm going to lean towards when I'm fishing in grass. Having a narrower head is going to help you go through that grass a little bit better. Another thing you'll notice when you're watching this bait underwater, really soft, thin skirt. So having a soft, thin skirt really makes it just look alive in the water. A lot of swimming action with that skirt. And then having that narrow head also gives the range of motion for the blade to go farther. And what you get in that is actually a unique sound and a unique action as well. So this is a bladed jig that I'm going to throw in grass. And like I said, I love that thin skirt that gives it a lot of lively action. Up next, we got V&M's The Blade. Now, one thing I've noticed about this bait is that I'm not going to be burning this bait. This bait is a lot better off with just kind of a slow roll. So if you're thinking about like early in the year, kind of shallow flat stuff like that, slow rolling, giving a fish a chance to kind of look at the bait a little bit more without that reaction bite, this is a good one for that. The other thing you'll notice too is that the blade is connected to the head via a split ring, which is unique from all these other bladed jigs. And two things that kind of benefit there is that the range of motion for the blade is actually quite extended. The other thing too is a lot of times when you hook a fish and they turn, that's when you're going to lose fish. They get leverage on it, it binds, and the hook will pop out. Well, if you have a split ring here, like I said, it gives that blade and that hook a little bit more range of motion, so it's going to keep fish pinned a little bit better. So that's the V&M The Blade. So the next vibrating jig we're going to look at is a collaboration between Bass Pro Shops and Z-Man. Z-Man, of course, known for creating this variety of lure, but what they did in coming together was just kind of make a nice working man's bladed jig. This is a price point friendly jig, but one thing I love about this jig is it's got a really wide head. So it's really good for skipping. It's one of the better ones for skipping. This is probably my favorite vibrating jig for skipping under docks. And of course, when you're skipping under docks, a lot of times you're getting hung up and you're losing bait. So this is a good one for that. Economically friendly, great for skipping, big realistic eye on it. This is a great bait. So next we're going to look at the Thunder Cricket, which has become a very popular vibrating jig. And this bait kind of comes along and saves my butt a little bit from something that I said in the first What It Looks Like video with chatterbaits, and that I said that Z-Man jackhammer was made out of tungsten. And guess what? It was in Japan, but it wasn't in America at the time, so I wasn't super far off. But this vibrating jig, the Thunder Cricket, is made of tungsten. Cool thing about tungsten, as we know, same weight, smaller profile, totally different sound. So lead is obviously a softer metal. Tungsten is a harder metal, so you get a really kind of intense chatter with it. This is another one of those bladed jigs that's going to be more erratic. So this is another one where maybe not so good for tight cover and grass and stuff like that. Covering a lot of water over an open water situation. A lot of times with these big wandering blades, you don't want to put like a paddle tail on there. So this happens to be Strike Kings with the blade minnow. Obviously just a little fork tail on there. Not going to take away from that front end action. You don't want wandering on both ends. So this is really going to go all over the place, as you'll see from the underwater footage. So the next jig we're going to look at is Z-Man's Evo Tungsten. As I said, bladed jig manufacturers are now starting to incorporate tungsten in their design process. So this is essentially a jackhammer made with a tungsten head. And this has got a wire-tied skirt, just like the jackhammer does. And the great thing about that is, after X amount of fish, the skirt isn't falling apart. You can throw this day in and day out, as long as you're not losing it, and the skirt's gonna stay in place, not fall off. Everything from the blade, the head design, the paint job on the head design, the skirt, and the color combinations that you get with the skirt make it an awesome, advanced bladed jig. So the last bait in our lineup today is another Z-Man bait, and this is a smaller jackhammer. It's called the Baby Jack. And why would you need a smaller chatterbait? Why would you need a smaller bladed jig? Well, spotted bass, smallmouth bass, again, going back to like pressured fish, cold front conditions, a little bit smaller, same noise and erratic action, just not quite as crazy. So what you're gonna get with this bait is the same thing that you're gonna get with the original jackhammer from Z-Man. So yeah, smaller by design, smaller head, smaller blade, smaller hook. Most of these hooks are 5/0 hooks. This is a 3/0 hook. So again, better for smallmouth, spotted bass, stuff like that, in those cold front conditions. So that's the Baby Jack from Z-Man. We've looked at several bladed jigs today. Now I want to see your opinion in the comments, what you think when you see these baits underwater, what you think when you hear these baits underwater, and some applications where you would throw one in a certain scenario over the other one. We're going to look at more baits underwater in this What It Looks Like series. So please let us know if you want to see crankbaits or spinner baits or anything underwater, and we'll shoot it in this series.